The question for today is, who doesn't like a good monster story? I know I certainly do. Whether an author takes legends that already exist and turns them on their head, or comes up with something completely unique and something we've never read about before, I love a good, scary, bloody monster story. And these 3 books are 3 recent ones that you should definitely read if you're into that, and why wouldn't you be? And we're going to talk about all those in just a minute. But first, speaking of monsters, my new anthology called Monsters is now available at the link in the description for only $3. And there's a link down below, a pre-order link for a book. I have a story, finally, in this anthology that's coming out next year. The tentative release date is March the 1st, but there is a pre-order link. And my short horror story called Got You Too will be included in this great anthology along with 19 other authors. And it's an anthology of body horror, and it's called Ooze. What a great name, right? And that is edited by Ruth Anna Evans. So you definitely want to pre-order that. I'm very excited to share that story with everybody. And you'll get a book full of nice ooey gooey body horror also. And be sure to check out all the rest of my links down below. You can find links down there for my social media, all my other books, and sign up for my newsletter and stuff like that. All right, let's get on with the video. All right. So our first monster book I want to talk about is called Bishop by Candace Nola. This is about a Wendigo, but it's set in the woods in the middle of winter. A woman and her teenage daughter go missing. The woman's brother is desperate, trying to find her. They've already been missing a few days when he shows up in the town. And even though they've got a search party going on with the rangers, he needs to do something. He can't just sit back and let the elements have at them, because it's not like them to go missing. They are avid hikers, avid climbers, into all kinds of extreme sports. And he feels something is off. He hears about a man named Bishop, a mountain man, a man who lives by himself. He does not want to be disturbed. He doesn't like people in general. He keeps to himself, but he knows those woods like the back of his hand. And so this man wants to find this bishop and use him as a guide to see what he can discover about his missing sister and niece. And what they find is terrifying. Things are going to get bloody. And I will tell you, not everybody is going to make it out alive. Because the pacing of this book is fantastic, man. It goes from 0 to 60 pretty fast. Great, lovable characters that you're going to care about. And, of course, when the bad stuff happens, that makes it even more effective. And, yeah. This book won't take you long to read. It's a shorter book, but boy, does it pack a punch. I was really, really impressed with this book, and I highly recommend it to you. Pick up Bishop by Candace Nola. And next, we have a book that if you have your ear to the horror community, you've probably heard about it. I've heard about this book a lot, and I finally got around to reading it in my from my TBR. And oh boy, it's called Below by Laurel Hightower. And this book, it really surprised me, the depth that this book has, because again, it's a shorter book, but it does have like a Mothman type monster at the center of it. And she's by herself. She's got an ex-husband. She's trying to find her independence again because he kind of took charge of the marriage. He was kind of in control of everything. And she is not used to being the independent woman that she once was. And now she's trying to find that. And so she's on her way to meet some friends for a horror convention, and things happen. And she's going to find herself in a situation that is very, very frightening, very horrific. And it's going to have to do with this Mothman-like creature and other things that she finds in a cave. And but here's the thing about this book is that this is really a book about it's a great psychological horror, because as she's going about trying to find a way to escape, trying to find a way out, trying to find a way to survive, she's got her ex-husband's voice in her head telling her what to do and bringing up all these things he used to say to her about how, she needs him to think straight, that she's not thinking straight, just all this stuff that you might know people who suffer through the same thing sometimes, and she can't get his voice out of her head. So he's kind of, even though we don't see him, he's kind of a presence there with her throughout. And this kind of gamey vibes, of Stephen King's book Gerald's Game. That's one of my favorite Stephen King books because you got the woman, she's strapped to a bed, and she's just going through all these things in her mind and talking to her different people from the past that she knows, going through scenarios in her head. And this is kind of like that in that regard, but it's a very effective, emotional story on top of all the horror and the bloodshed that's going to happen as the story progresses. And wow, now I see why everybody was talking about it, because it is just a fantastic book, and I cannot recommend it enough. Pick up Below by Laurel Hightower. And then we have When the Night Bells Ring by Joe Kaplan. This one surprised me. It came out in October 2022. It is a longer novel instead of just like a novella. It's a full-length novel, and this one really surprised me. I wish I would have read it sooner because it's got all the elements you want. It's got a desert town. It's got a brand new monster kind of legend building up here. It's got something that's not attached to anything we know of. And these monsters are absolutely horrifying. And part of it is set in a future where climate change has ravaged the earth and water is as good as gold. And two women on a motorcycle are making their way east from the west, and they wind up in a desert town. They discover a mine in that town and thinking, well, maybe we can go down, maybe there's some water. We can, even though it might be stagnant, we can grab some water. Because they are dying of thirst, literally dying of thirst. And they don't have much food, just a few beef jerky sticks. And so they're desperate. So they go down, seeing if they can find some water. They can boil it. They can purify it somehow and make it over to New York City, where they're headed, because they hear there's a refugee camp that will take them in and they can get water and food and things. But an accident happens, leaving them down in this system with absolutely no way out that they can see. But when they're down there, one of the women finds a diary from a woman, written from a woman in the 1800s, that details her and her family's move to a town and to a desert town and the events that happen there, because this town is not hospitable to strangers. They find a lot of eerie people. They are an eerie, gruesome goings on in this town, I guess you can say. But her husband thinks they're going to find their fortune there. And so he, despite all her protests, he does not want to leave. And she has 2 kids she has to care for. He gets a job working in the mine at the time in the 1800s. Yes, it's going to be the same mine that the 2 women in the other part of the story find themselves in. And as this woman is reading through the diary, and her and her friend are trapped with nowhere to go down in this system, injured, starving, dying of thirst. The diary is going to tell of certain creatures, certain things, and how they came about. And I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, eventually the past is going to meet the present right down there. And I love the way that this book transfers between the two women stuck in this system and their desperate struggle to survive somehow and try to find a way out. And then the diary parts that detail very vividly what happened to this family in this town and about these creatures. Because they come together seamlessly. And I think personally the story of just the diary part itself would have made a great story. I would have read that story as a standalone because it was that well written, that engaging, and really, really frightening as well, what happens and some of the events that transpire. But when you add to it this other element that these women now are reading this diary all these many, many, many years later, while they're trapped, and begin to see the similarities between what this woman went through in the past and what they're going through now, it is effective. And it, like I said, when the past meets the present, things are going to go very sideways very, very quickly. And it's not going to end well, as you can imagine. And like I said, the creatures in this book are just absolutely horrifying. They will send a chill up your spine. I've never read any kind of creature book like these before. This author is very imaginative and really, Dan, this book packs a punch. Like I said, I was disappointed I didn't read it in October. That definitely would have been a great Halloween pick. But still, now that the holidays are over, we can look forward to Halloween again, and you can start out by getting this book, When the Night Bells Ring, by Joe Kaplan. I will leave links down below to Amazon for all three of these books. And be sure to check out all my links down below. Buy copies of my books. Join me on social media and all that good stuff. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time, spending it here with me. I really appreciate you guys watching. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.